Welcome back to Florida Realtors Live. This is Tracy Velt. I am your host. I am the contributing editor of Florida Realtor Magazine, managing editor of Housing Wire, and host of the Real Trending podcast. Right now on the stage with me, I have Brandon Johnson. He is the CEO of Coldwell Banker Crown Realtors. So welcome.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk all about brokerage growth and growing revenue. So many brokers are focused on that, growing revenue. Mm-hmm. And you said sustainable growth starts with the numbers, but what's the biggest financial mistake you see broker owners making before they even look at their P&L?
Yeah, so I think what I've noticed through the last couple years of transitioning into the brokerage space and then also doing some coaching and all this other stuff is recognizing that most managers and brokers have elevated from an agent status. And so most agents love them dearly. Most of them are going to come through and actually start following a transaction or production number versus profitability. Mm-hmm. The great thing about what's going on in some of the space with buyer rep and seller representation and how it's been augmented, agents are becoming more aware of different methodologies and revenue streams. And the same is true for brokerages, where for so long they've been following production and unit count and all this other stuff. And while that's great, it doesn't actually track your true profitability. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we've started to notice with brokers, like they're not in a space where they can begin to kind of move through some of that.
Yeah.
So when we talk about understanding it, there's a couple of things you really need to know from the brokerage level. You need to know your GCI per agent, right?
Yep.
What is that gross commission income actually looking like on an agent basis? We want to know your expense ratio, especially whether you're a team lead or a brokerage, brick and mortar, virtual, it doesn't matter. There is an expense associated with it. Staff, bricks, technology is another big one we'll talk about.
Yep.
Your profit per transaction, understanding what are you actually getting in return for the services you're providing to your agents or your team members. And then we want to look at revenue concentration. What are the different ways that we're receiving it with a commission squeeze? You're starting to feel that in slower markets and adjustments. Yep. And then obviously your staff to agent ratio. And then what we're looking at is like a 90-day cash position to get you through that next quarter.
Well, and I think a lot of that was what really killed a lot of brokers in the financial crisis.
100%.
Is they didn't have the finances to sustain their brokerage. So we did lose a lot of companies during that time. But also, I feel like there was this big push toward core services or affiliated services was going to make up that margin compression that was happening on the real estate side. I feel like not everyone, traditional brokers are still focused on that, but there's a whole slew of new companies coming out that really are not focused on that at all. They're focused on team growth, converting brokerages to teamerages, really focused on that high growth, and they're growing very quickly.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for brokers who are more traditional, trying to, basically they're feeling the squeeze, not sure where to go from there, but really aren't growing like those new models are?
Yeah, so when we talk about that affiliated services model, it was growing and it was a really big trend. Obviously, each state has different regulations, right? So I operate in the Midwest, and even my company's in a couple states, and we can do affiliated services in one and we can't in the other.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see that compression. So now you're getting this new model, if you will, where you're getting an agent who's now getting their lending ID, right?
Yeah.
They're becoming a member. They're going through all these processes to receive affiliated fees, which is fine. And then I think agents and some of these other brokerages are trying to become that one-stop shop, right? And with affiliated services, that was the model, but still trying to keep it separate, right?
Yeah.
Different branding, different elements. Now a lot of people are saying, nope, you can come to our one entity, and we got your insurance, we'll take care of your lending, we're going to take care of your handyman services. We have all of this right here, and it's one name and it's one thing. What's hard, though, is now you're starting to see where people went to this concentrated model. Mm-hmm. Now they're transitioning the other way, where it's saying, well, actually, I just want to do brokerage because running the rest of this is terrible. Hiring people, managing people is the worst. This gives us the greatest opportunity for success by investing in people, and now we're just going to watch our compression, we're going to watch our expenses, and we're going to try to maintain some sort of profitability to the best that you can.
Yeah, and you're still seeing that really consumer services. I mean, you got the Redfin Rocket, drawing a blank there, new model. And then you've got, of course, the Bed Bath & Beyond buying Fathom.
Right.
We're looking at kind of tying all those services together. So it'll be interesting where the industry goes from here. Is that going to catch on? I mean, I'm sure it will.
In some capacity.
But there's always room for all different models of brokerages.
100%.
So And so the market hasn't been very predictable. And most
Really?
brokers aren't as big as a, you're under Compass now, or like a,
Yep.
an Anywhere. So what can they do to kind of boost their business in a way that is sustainable for them, no matter what the market?
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now, they talk about recruiting, right? That
Yes.
and that seems to be the space that they say, well, recruiting solves all problems. And well, that's true, and I think in the nicest way, I think that's an easy cop-out answer.
Yeah.
It's saying, well, as long as you bring more people in the door, that's going to solve your problem. Well, at the end of the day, if your expense ratio is unchanged, if your per agent productivity is so low, you're not training on value and commission modeling, I don't care if you bring 200 agents through the door, depending upon your model, recruiting doesn't necessarily solve that problem.
Right.
So really, I think it comes from the owner, the manager, whoever has been entrusted with the care of overseeing this particular entity, whether it's an office or an entire brokerage.
Yeah.
Understanding your financial and your expenses is really that critical thing. We got to stop forecasting by one single number.
Yeah.
Well, we want to hit this revenue number. Well, that's fine, but we can hit that revenue by cutting expenses, shrinking space. Yes, recruiting is an option, of course, but there are so many other ways to do that. And I think so often our industry has been told from a leadership perspective, well, just go recruit, Tracy. Like if you get 5 more people, that'll boost the numbers and we'll be black again. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who's been doing this a while knows the ramp up time for a new agent or a recruited agent.
Right.
It's the same old adage that any HR person would tell you. It's better to spend the money on retention than it is to train and onboard a new person because it's way more expensive.
Well, and we've done studies on this, but it almost doesn't even need to be studied. That the team-rich model is going to be more profitable than a traditional brokerage model.
100%.
And it's mainly has to do with leads, which is something that a lot of brokers don't give their agents.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Is that something that they should really be looking into no matter what model they are, or is that something that really is model specific?
I would say specifically on lead generation.
Yes.
That's going to be brokerage specific. That's going to be model specific.
Yeah.
Because if you run a traditional cap structure or a flat fee and that's your value add, there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't align with it. I don't agree with it because I believe in investing in our agents. It's just a different model. So while lead generation is critical, at the same point in time, I think you're going to see, besides the parties over there, you're going to see a major compression with leads. I mean, look at Zillow alone in the major markets, right? And switching to their Flex program.
Yes.
Not only, and I know they say, we'll never be a brokerage.
They're already a brokerage.
They're already a brokerage, so I don't know what you're doing. But anyway, they're already in that model of becoming that team bridge model where they're starting to move forward. So I think when you start to look at that model, lead generation is critical, but you have to put yourself in a position to where you, as a brokerage, can stand on your own modeling and not rely on a third party.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of the old adage, like I tell people, the people who make iPhone cases, they know every August they have to completely ditch their old inventory and they have to ramp up a whole new structure.
Right.
August to October in that market, like your business model is dependent upon a third party.
Yeah.
And if Apple switches and they're no longer making iPhones, well, now what?
Yeah.
Right? Now you have to pivot. So having some of your own structure and internal, if that aligns with what you want to bring for a value proposition, it is important and it's something we should be looking at.
Yeah, I think it's human tendency to look at your competition and then wonder what you can do, and really what you could do is stay the course on what you believe in.
Right. In our industry, we look at it and it's a shiny penny syndrome, right? And it's like, well, what's that new technology? And of course, with AI blowing up everywhere, everybody's like, well, I need AI. Well, no, you don't necessarily, right? Like, oh, I need to buy leads. No, you don't necessarily need to do that. Imagine if you opened your garage door in your neighborhood and you just invited 20 people to come with a potluck, right?
Yeah.
Like that's going to have a larger impact on your business than necessarily all the lead buy stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a very different model. It's not right. It's not wrong. It just needs to align with who the leader believes the brokerage is going to meet.
Yeah. You had said that too many people they look to gut forecasting rather than the actual data.
Yeah.
So, what are the 3 metrics every broker should be looking at?
Yeah, so if we're going to cut it down, it's a really good question, by the way. If you're going to cut it down, brokerage, team lead, it doesn't matter. That first big one is always going to be your expense ratio.
Right.
In the virtual brokerage space, or the VOW space, it's going to be a little bit different because you're going to have cost allocation and a little bit of segregation in some of that. But your expense ratio is really what you want to focus on. You want to understand what is my total cost for running this thing on a monthly basis, and what is that as a percentage of my revenue, okay? Then you want to look at what I consider your profit per transaction number, because then you can start to forecast a little bit more on your revenue as far as like, okay, general profit, whether it's, and if you're a big organization, you probably have spreadsheets that show this.
Yeah.
If you're a small organization, you can run an average profit and then just forecast by pending units.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I think everybody misses, to your point earlier, was what I call the 90-day cash rule, right? So associations run with reserve policies.
Yep.
And there's a reason, because there's really smart people who said, if you're going to be a part of NAR, you're going to have a reserve policy.
Right. Yeah.
How many brokerages have a reserve policy?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what's hard. When so many of our fellow realtors are in these small boutique independents, a lot of times the cash is a limited.
Right.
And it's a limited resource, and you want to make sure that you're sitting there. So what we coach and speak to is, let's start by getting 90 days of those operating expenses, so that if the worst case scenario happens, you had to shut something down, you can give people notice, you can plan accordingly, you can do a lot in 90 days when you know the ship is going down.
Yeah.
I bet the Titanic and everybody on it would love to know a 90-day advance of what was going to happen, right? So like at a minimum, 90 days on that cash reserve. So those would be the top three, I would say. Your expense ratio, your profit per transaction, and then that 90-day cash ruling.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked about that shiny object syndrome, and I think that it's wise for every brokerage to go through kind of a tech analysis.
Oh, 100%.
What are they using? What are their agents using?
Yep.
What is worth, how should they decide on what's worth keeping, what's worth getting rid of, and what's worth investing in?
Yeah, so this is an excellent transition, because most brokerages, what we have found out, and this comes from T360, NAR studies, you name it, technology, hands down, is the largest overspent category in brokerages right now that we have ever seen.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from people trying to keep up.
Yeah.
Well, we need the CRM, we need the lead generation, we need the AI platform, and all these other things, which is totally fine. But on average right now, most brokerages are spending 18 to 22% of their net revenue on technology, which is an astronomical amount, and it is borderline on the same amount that people are spending on bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
So like your physical space is on technology, and your adoption rate is wildly underutilized. So when you're looking at, deciding whether or not technology and whether you should be using it, I think a lot of people need to understand that there's kind of three big questions that you look at this, right? So obviously it's, well, what did this thing cost me?
Right.
Okay, because there's always going to be that expense. It's not bad, just what did it cost? And the big question that nobody really knows how is, what did it produce?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did we actually do with this? And then lastly, what would we lose if we took it away?
Yeah.
Right, and those are questions that if you are an independent, one office situation, hopefully you have an agent advisory council. You pull people from all quartiles and you pull them in and you say, hey, we're thinking about making a business decision. We have this tech tool. Are you using it? What's it producing? What would happen if we got rid of it?
Yeah.
And engaging that input and getting the buy-in from people is one of the best ways to really do that audit. And like for us, like it's a tighter year, right, in real estate right now. So our team, we said we're not doing any new technology this year, right? You mentioned I'm with Coldwell Banker. We love them. With the recent transition into the Compass International Holdings, there's a whole new tech stack awaiting us, right? So we also said, well, we're going to wait and we're going to see what's going to roll out here. And then we're going to make that decision next year on, do we need to make a change? Do we need to add something in order to do that? But so I think if you could ask some of those really important questions, I think you're going to find out that, if you answer what did it cost, what did it produce, and what's going to happen if we lose it, that's going to be a really big win.
Well, and I have talked to quite a few brokers who are now building their own because AI makes it easier for them, so they're saving money that way as well, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, and on that side, one thing we always overlook with AI is AI can be wrong, so I just want to be really clear. The other side of that, too, is that brokers, you really want to check with your liability insurance and your errors and omissions. You start putting contact data inside of an AI system where you don't own the database because you're leasing space and you don't have a security policy on that. A lot of times your cyber insurance isn't going to cover you. Your errors and omissions will now not cover you because your cyber won't, and then your liability won't because guess what? Your cyber and your errors and omissions aren't going to cover you. So you got 3 layers of protection there that will not cover you inside of that space.
That's really interesting. And one thing I really hadn't thought of, it's definitely because if you don't have a closed system, definitely.
Yeah, so I love AI. I'm a big AI guy. I build apps for my team, on like Lovable and Claude. We do a lot of this stuff. But we make sure that we host our own databases so that we are holding the data, because the last thing you want is any of that thing to breach. Because you talk about one data center going down, and we're going to have a really big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wrap up, what's one budgeting habit or financial discipline every broker owner could adopt tomorrow that would have a huge impact on their business?
Oh, this one may shock you or may not with all of your knowledge and information. Write it down.
Okay.
We find that most brokerages do not operate with a written, documented budget, and they just kind of say, well, as long as there's cash there, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
And that's the agent mentality, right? Like, well, as long as the bank account is positive, we're doing fine.
Yeah.
And while that is one business model, I believe that as time goes on, you get more of the compression of the market, more of the commission compression, more of the retained company dollar compression. If you're not really managing that as kind of a navigation moving forward, you're really just setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
I mean, the old adage, of course, right? You fail to plan, you're planning to fail, right? So it's one of those things where most people don't write it down.
Yeah.
And it can be simple. Start with high bucket items. You don't have to get line by line detail like we do at associations, right? But when it's your thing and you're in charge of it, start with some basic budgets and just write it down. And it's just that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for joining us live today.